What is vital to consider is the significance of what occurred after Crowley's death and who followed his teachings, wholly or in part.
Crowley had many followers. He had followers through his magical organizations, the OTO, which still exists today. He also had people who were very interested in him, who carried on his tradition. For example, Timothy Leary, who people perceive as a guru, but he was also an illuminate of Thanateros, which is an offshoot of Crowley's kind of OTO and his magical practices. He copied a lot of Crowley's behaviors and what Crowley did. He attacked Christianity. He was a hedonist like Crowley. He visited the Great Pyramid of Cheops and stayed in there much like Crowley did. He also traveled to Algeria where Crowley emulated the magical practices or Enochian calls of John Dee and Edward Kelly. He carried Crowley's tarot deck wherever he went, and he actually he wrote a book called Confessions of a Hope Fiend, which is an inversion of two of Crowley's books called Confessions and Diary of a Dope Fiend.
Well, I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said he was in favor of finding your own self and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law under love. It was a very powerful statement. I'm sorry he isn't around now to appreciate the glories that he started.
L. Ron Hubbard said he was following on his tradition. He actually started his religion or his new Age ideal church, the Church of Scientology, on the day that Crowley died in 1947. These people have a great influence on the world. There was Jack Parsons, and he was the head of the Agape Lodge, which was the OTO lodge out in California, and his scribe was actually L. Ron Hubbard. Charles Manson was a member of the Solar Lodge, which is an offshoot of the OTO. So Manson was very much knowledgeable very knowledgeable about these kind of practices, and he had an immense influence upon the 60s. Alfred Kinsey visited Aleister Crowley's Abbey of Thelema, which was his kind of the inversion of a church that he had in Cefalù, Sicily, and very dark rituals took place there. There were also musical followers, Jimmy Page, David Bowie, Ozzy Osbourne. There's his ideas suffuse J.K. Rowling's books by Harry Potter. And I haven't read all of her books, but her movies and what I've seen, the references to Flood and Sirius, these are all highly occultic references that indicate that she knows quite a bit more than she's telling the public. And these are books and movies that have been seen by billions of people. Ian Fleming was influenced by Crowley. He wrote the James Bond book. So it goes on and on. So they're still out here together. There's a commonly understood reference to Crowley and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
I was going to mention that. Of course, Crowley appears on the cover twice, didn't he?
I think I know just once, but there's also the kind of a story about the intro to Sgt. Pepper's. It says 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play, and somebody told me that was a reference to Crowley. It was 20 years ago today to that day that Crowley passed away. So 47 was when he died, and I guess the album came out in 67. So Lennon himself was a known occultist. He would constantly go to occult bookstores in New York City, and some of his writings, Imagine, and all these other songs and stuff reference a lot of occult subjects. So
Occult doctrines have led to the 1960s counterculture and led countless people down a path that has seen devastating results. Probably the greatest example of this was the rise of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. During this time, before the rise of Hitler's Nazi Party, Germany experienced an enormous rise in occult interest. This allowed the Führer to spellbound these audiences.
The current worldwide revival of Hinduism blended with psychology and disguised as self-improvement, self-hypnosis, positive mental attitude seminars, visualization techniques, and mind dynamics courses has made today's world far more susceptible to spiritual deception than the Germany that embraced Adolf Hitler.
ist unser Wunsch und Wille, dass dieser Staat und dieses Reich bestehen sollen in den kommenden Jahrtausenden. Wir können glücklich sein zu wissen, dass diese Zukunft restlos uns gehört.
French intellectual Dennis de Roegment attended a Nazi rally during 1938. De Roegment indicated that, despite his rigorous attempt to remain detached from the spectacle unfolding before him, he was involuntarily drawn into the vortex of the crowd's hysterical adulation of Adolf Hitler. It was only by dint of a kind of superhuman resolve, said the French philosopher, that he was able to regain his equilibrium before the mesmerizing presence of Hitler's evil genius. De Roegment is believed to have stated the following: some people believe, from having experienced in his presence a feeling of horror and an impression of supernatural power, that he is the seat of thrones, dominions and powers, by which St. Paul meant those hierarchical spirits which can descend into any ordinary mortal and occupy him like a garrison. What I am saying would be the cheapest form of romantic nonsense, were it not for what has been established by this man, or rather, through him, is a reality that is one of the wonders of the century.
Eventually I found a book called Running God's Plan by Foster Bailey. And he said one of the goals of their hierarchy was to have a unified Europe. He said, we tried this before, working through a disciple, using the Rhine River Valley and the inhabitants of that valley as a binding factor. That attempt was unsuccessful, but now another attempt is in full swing, namely the six-nation European Common Market. And you don't need to have been even an A student in history to have known who that disciple was. Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was greatly influenced by the writings of a 19th century occultist, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. He was reported to have slept with a copy of her book, The Secret Doctrine, by his bedside. Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society with Henry Olcott in 1875. The swastika itself was taken from the logo of the Theosophical Society. Even this connection was noticed by the History Channel in a recent documentary.
One of the occult doctrines that would foreshadow Nazism was spelled out for the whole world in an unlikely place by an unlikely writer. Living in London is a Russian aristocrat turned best-selling author named Madame Helena Blavatsky. In more than 1,000 pages, Blavatsky rewrites the history of the world, from the creation to the present. Her story is based on unconventional sources: Babylonian astrology, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and a mishmash of the occult.
So if Blavatsky had such a profound influence, what did she believe? Blavatsky stated the following in her work, The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1. The devil is now called darkness by the church, whereas in the Bible he is called the Son of God, see Job, the bright star of the early morning, Lucifer, see Isaiah. There is a whole philosophy of dogmatic craft in the reason why the first archangel who sprang from the depths of chaos was called Lux, Lucifer, the luminous son of the morning, or Manvantaric dawn. He was transformed by the church into Lucifer or Satan because he is higher and older than Jehovah and had to be sacrificed to the new dogma. Echoing the same Luciferian beliefs of the elite, she continues later in The Secret Doctrine. In this case, it is but natural, even from the dead letter standpoint, to view Satan, the serpent of Genesis, as the real creator and benefactor, the father of spiritual mankind. For it is he who was the harbinger of light, bright radiant Lucifer, who opened the eyes of the automaton created by Jehovah, as alleged, and he who was the first to whisper, in the day ye eat thereof, ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil, can only be regarded in the light of a saviour. So if Blavatsky influenced Hitler and the Nazi movement, as many researchers now believe, and she is also often referred to as the mother of the New Age, has the New Age and Nazism any similarities?
You've written several articles about the New Age movement. She said, yes, I have. I said, how would you like to see the flip side of that movement? She said, what do you mean? I said, I've examined it carefully. It's identical to Nazism.
The following is taken from Constance Cumby's book, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. From pages 114 to 120, she details many similarities between the Nazi movement and the New Age. They include some of the following. Quote, Nazism taught the doctrine of Aryanism and Aryan purity, that the New Age would feature an Aryan mutant master race. The New Age movement teachings stressed the doctrine of Aryanism and Aryan purity. See especially Alice A. Bailey's writings and the writings of David Spangler. Nazism featured hatred of Jews and an ancient occult doctrine of a blood taint resting on the Jews, and that there was a need for a final correct solution to this Jewish problem. The secret doctrine of occultism features hatred of the Jews. The writings of Alice Bailey, which have been followed meticulously by the New Age movement, state that the new Messiah will not be Jewish, as the Jews have forfeited their privilege, and that they must pass through the fires of purification in order to learn humility. These teachings are also strongly opposed to Zionism and the possession of a homeland by the Jewish people. These teachings also state that what happened to the Jewish people in World War II was a result of their bad national karma. Nazism featured the quest for the Holy Grail as a path to transcendental or higher consciousness. The New Age movement features the quest for the Holy Grail as a path to transcendental or higher consciousness. Hitler used mescaline to speed up consciousness expansion. The use of drugs as a catalyst in consciousness expansion has long been a part of the New Age movement. The Nazis thought that they had evolved into a new and superior species by means of spiritual disciples and consciousness evolution. The New Agers think they have evolved into a new and superior species, Homo noeticus, as opposed to Homo sapiens by means of spiritual disciples and consciousness evolution. Hitler was an initiate of occult practices, including yoga, Tibetanism, hypnosis, and the secret doctrine of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and the Tibetan masters. Benjamin Krem says that the Maitreya the Christ is a 7th degree initiate. Entrance into the New Age requires a Luciferic initiation. The Nazis believed in the law of karma and reincarnation. The New Agers also believe in the law of karma and reincarnation. Nazism sought the institution of a new world order in which the Aryan race would predominate and control. The New Age movement seeks the institution of a new world order in which Aryanism will prevail. Nazis believe the roots of their Aryanism were first found in Atlantis. The New Agers trace their secret doctrine and occult teachings to Atlantis. Constance Cumby states the following in relation to the New Age belief in Atlantis, that shrouded in the mist of Atlantis, which may well refer to the pre-Noetic era, are the roots of both New Age doctrine and Nazism. A portion of this doctrine deals with the origins of the races of mankind. The secret doctrine held that they originated in Atlantis, and that one of the 7 Atlantean races was that of the Aryans. Although there were supposedly 6 other Atlantean races, the Aryans were the master race or supermen of the Atlantean races. Many of these New Age doctrines have clearly been circulated and propagated among the general population, especially among what is currently called today the Truth Movement. What is interesting to note also is that the Bible, thousands of years ago, predicted a time when people would go after doctrines of demons and seducing spirits. In 1 Timothy it states the following, Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.